said, how are you? Dansigida, I am fine. Namudananto, come on in. Beat the gui. Sit down.
Actually, I started as a councillor in 2012. Fred Roy was mayor at the time, and I had just moved home probably about 2 years before that. I had a desire to move back home, as most people do after some point. I was away from the community for 12 years, and I had gotten my education, worked in various fields under different titles, and I just wasn't feeling that sense of accomplishment still. So I thought, here my hometown needed some volunteers, help. I thought maybe it's a good time to try looking for work back at home. So I did. And shortly after, I was on the rec board, then I was on the CIPI board, and then somebody said, hey, you should run for council. So I thought I'd run for council, and sure enough, I got it. And it was interesting. Oh, it just opened my eyes to the world of possibilities for our community. Just, I guess what we needed was somebody with that passion and motivation to move things forward. So I did that. I got involved in a lot of other committees or boards. I participated in a lot of different meetings. As many people know, there's a lot of different conferences and meetings to attend out there. So I did that and found a world of opportunities just waiting for Beauval. And so I got my feet wet a little bit when we decided to resurrect our Beauval Development Incorporated in 2014. And one of our first ventures was to acquire Blueberry Hills Water off of a local entrepreneur here who was looking to retire and sell. So we did that, and after you get your first win, you're like, you got that appetite, you're like, I got to do more. So we looked into what else can we do, and of course everybody knows the big tragedy that happened in 2011. We lost our arena, and believe me, there was a lot of discussion around what's the plan to restore Beauval to that same former glory. And so when we lost the arena, we didn't realize we just lost a rink for skating and tournaments and stuff. We lost a place to gather, a place to meet, to eat, to do anything. So, and just to have a centralized point for the community to do things. So Fred, myself, who else was on council at the time, I think Jamie Liberty and a few others, we decided, yeah, we need that first. We don't have a place to even have weddings or wakes or things that ultimately bring community people together. So we started to plan for a small hall. And that little dream turned into a big dream, obviously. Well, then we thought, well, it has to have more functionality than a hall, otherwise it just sits empty. Then we thought, well, maybe we should try a gym. So it went from a gym, and then we thought, you know what, we need a new village office, so we added an office to it. You know what, we also need a new clinic, so we added a new clinic to the plan. We just kept going. Our dreams were just, they were big, they were going to the sky. So it was kind of funny at the time, and of course, as we all know, it had to dwindle down a little bit to reality, right? So what can we actually afford? So once all was said and done, we had a good plan, and thus BDI Center was born. Obviously, it wasn't an arena, but the idea was always to attach the arena to it and expand forward. So when I became mayor in 2016, the BDI building was just complete, and it was open for its first inaugural event. And we already had people lining up to get married in here. So we had Teddy and Evelyn's wedding. We even had Mayor Fred Roy's wedding in here. So it was really interesting. Learned some lessons, learned how to run a big commercial building like this. And so, of course, now when I became mayor in 2016, again, like I said, my appetite to keep growing the community became very prevalent. So we worked on many other projects. We thought, okay, we can't do anything as big as, say, the BDI Center, but let's focus on some community needs. So of course, as we all know, over the next course of those 4 years, we worked on doing the Beauval Fitness and Rec Center. We acquired a local business, MD's Confectionery, which now belongs to Beauval Development. We also started working on more rentals for BDI rentals. So we do office complexes and office spaces. And just recently, obviously, we're here in our beautiful expansion. We got that ready. We already have tenants lining up to rent it for training. And it's just, you can see that as you build those opportunities, the people come. And that's really all our end goal is to meet the needs of our citizens and just keep on giving her so that there's opportunities created for the community. And we have a few more exciting announcements to make here in the future. we actually did engage into consultations with SHA to get a new clinic in here, and it was kind of unfortunate. The SHA has a process, right, and there's a lot of bureaucratic red tape that came around it, and we gave them a full year to kind of get stuff together, and I guess in essence, to boil it down, we waited a little bit too long, and we just couldn't include the clinic in our plans. It had to pass through ministers and blah, 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 right? So what we did was we said, okay, we're going to miss the clinic this round, but let's keep that dream alive. Beauval is in desperate and dire need for a new clinic. So we were happy that a couple of years ago, we were approached during the times of COVID in 2020 with some planners from SHA. And they wanted to, well, at first they wanted to focus on something small, just like we did. Start small and then make your dream a reality, right? So when they came around to talk about a 2-compartment ambulance bay with a sleeper suite, we were excited. We're like, okay, let's think about this logically. Now let's just not just build where it's most convenient. Let's think of what it's going to look like 20 years from now. So when the planners came around, I had mentioned, the previous plans about building a clinic, and we said, okay, let's plan to build the ambulance bay, but then build it in such a place where next to it, adjacent in a bigger property, would be the home of a future clinic and community wellness services, so that that can all be part of the plan. So they took that idea back to their architects, and they surveyed 3 sites in the community where that reality could happen, and they put that plan together. And so I guess that's where we're at right now. Yeah. Sure. I was invited by MP Gary Vidal of our region here to attend a standing committee meeting to report on some of the successes and recommendations for the pandemic response from our region. I was trying my best, because they don't give you much time to talk, right? So I was trying my best to really relay the importance of a regional strategy towards a pandemic response, because working in silos doesn't necessarily work. You take, for example, the wildfires. We have an existing situation where Stanley Mission's under threat of wildfire. That is a visible threat in front of you. You can allocate resources, you can pull in regional resources if you need to, but obviously from lessons learned during the pandemic, you're dealing with an invisible threat. You don't know when or where it'll strike, so the only way to be is to be diligent on all fronts from every area in the region. And because we have family in different communities, it's important during this time that they're aware of the dangers of mixing households and whatnot. So these were lessons learned during the pandemic, and what we wanted to do was, like I said, create that regional approach. And obviously we were dealing with multiple jurisdictions, some of them federal, some of them provincial. So one of the recommendations we made was, like, let's formalize a partnership for the region and get it pen to paper and actually work out that when a regional response like this one comes into enactment, we know who retains authority for what, and what authorities our leadership retained during that time. That was, I think, part of the butting heads of the pandemic response, is that who has authority to do what and who should represent who, right? So we wanted to formalize that, as you know, Rick. We wanted to put that on paper and get that all that legal, I don't know what to call it, mumbo jumbo, figured out, because those require legal minds, and those are ones who understand the acts of the federal governments and the acts of the provincial governments more than us. Like, we are not the leading authorities on this. So we need to take those lessons learned, figure that out, and then also figure out what we have in our backyard and what we're missing. We need to identify those gaps. There were some really good resources that came out of those partnerships, such as the Métis Nation, where they had deployable RV units for isolation. They had deployable food and other resources where households were limited on financial resources because of job loss, and they couldn't go to work in Meadow Lake, or they couldn't go fly out to the mines because of isolation events, or in an event of total job freezing because of the threat of the pandemic. So we have this comes from all angles, and it was quite scary. And if it wasn't for the resiliency of the region, like, we'd be a little bit more worried. But as such with any crisis, everybody stepped up and we all banded together, and it worked out very well. I think in my mind where the breakdown started to happen is like who then is responsible for what later on, and I think it's just roles need to be more defined and more clear. And I think that was the big recommendation, was like, let's get it written out. For sure. Yeah, like as you mentioned, when the Métis Nation receives funding for anything, even outside of the pandemic, a lot of it affects our residents in the community. Most of the communities, right from Green Lake to Buffalo, even to La Loche, are predominantly Métis. We're talking about 65% or more, easy in each community. So when the federal government's, I do realize it was a quick turnaround response to get some, financial resources where they needed to go. But what they failed to recognize was the Métis Nation government is a sovereign government on its own, and the provincial municipalities are a local, sovereign, not really sovereign, but like a leadership of their own. So we can't really request another government to do something for us unless we had a formalized arrangement to begin with. So obviously their own leaders have an idea what their pandemic response should be, and it doesn't necessarily reflect on what we want it to be. We can't access those dollars without their permission or their lending of or granting of. We did receive a small amount of money to take care of the gates for the community because they saw good value in limiting the traffic flow in and out of communities. And as you say, there are Métis and First Nation residents in and off reserve. So they decided the best way to handle the pandemic was through their own team and their own leadership. So we didn't want to step out of our own boundaries. And because we only receive monies from the province, as they did not obviously receive any federal money to offset the cost, we didn't receive any of that financing. So we weren't able to sit at the table to make and help or strategize with any of those decisions. They did seek our counsel on a few things, but like I said, they didn't. They have their own. They have their own leadership team to make those decisions. And so going back to when I say about putting pen to paper about a formalized agreement, if we all agree from government to government to government, we're talking First Nation, Métis, and the municipality on behalf of the province, if we all agree as to what the response should be, those financial resources will then, in the agreements, be committed to them on all fronts. I mean, municipalities can only offer so much, but where we come from is obviously we're the town site. We have the resources, the heavy equipments, the staff to enact a lot of the strategy that is then put forth from some of these other jurisdictions. So I guess to clarify that, it's about working together. It's about taking that allocation of funds, and it's not like we're needing money to do certain things. It's just that we need them to, when the strategy comes forth and we decide on a plan of action, we need their financial assistance to help empower that. And I think that's where we all need to agree and come together on. Yeah, I guess going along with that idea, years ago, going back to when I was a counselor, just outside of even emergency response, there are other benefits to working together as a region. One of my first SUMA conventions, I was able to listen to a lady from the Brooks County area in southern Alberta, and she talked about a regional recycling program, a regional recreation program, and it just opened my mind to those world of possibilities of working together. Obviously, municipalities have their own budgets, their own leaderships, but in that same breath of air, as I talk about jurisdictions from federal and provincial jurisdictions with the Métis Nation, First Nations, municipalities can also work together. And in fact, a lot of funding in the provincial government focuses on regional approaches to things like, say, regional solid waste management, regional recreation. They have funds available through the targeted sector supports, TSS funds it's called. So, I mean, it's funny that they have all of these grant programs, but they don't really have a framework for us to build off of to work together. Like if we wanted to do that, say even between what we note as the Primrose Lake communities, which is Isle Cross, Beauval, Jans Bay, Cold Bay, from an economic alliance approach, we approach that because we have a grant fund for that. Now imagine if there was a similar regional grant fund for equipment purchasing so that we can maintain roadways and upgrade our water sewer systems. Like, why do we have to approach it alone when we have the ability as a group of communities to tackle these growing infrastructure problems in each community? And housing is becoming a big need. If we were to obtain a lot of that heavy equipment, pool our labor resources, well, like, geez, Rick, we're stronger together. And I think having that framework given to us, whether, I don't know if the term we'd use is a rural municipality. I think that term belongs to sort of an agricultural group. I almost like the word county because you become part of a county. I don't know if Alberta adopted that language, but whatever we want to call ourselves, like, it's just, we need to group together as these communities, because like we could really do some powerful things together. I like the approach. I'd like to explore it more. Again, that sometimes would require some minds bigger than mine, and of course some legal stuff. But yeah, I would definitely love for us to, as a community of Beauval, to explore that option. I think we can do some really great things. Oh, for sure. I don't remember which platform I mentioned this before. I said, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Saskatchewan Wanderer. He goes around, basically takes a camera with him, and it's just him and his phone or a small camera, and just explores Saskatchewan. In the same breath of air, I would say, people are into the small, short burst media. You've heard of TikToks, Snapchats, Instagram, and then Facebook Reels, which is part of Instagram. But it's almost like, I don't know if we have just short attention spans these days, but we want our news right in 10 seconds, or we don't want to hear it at all. So it's almost like you need to get somebody out there who's what they call influencer or a motivator, to get out there, get to an event and say, hey, I'm here at the event reporting live, come check out the blah, 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 and do it in like a quick, post it and just get it out there, because people are flipping through all sorts of media, right? So we need to embrace the now and also still have one step in the past. And it's so funny when I say the past, because who would have thought even something as big as Facebook could be considered? Oh yeah, so there's certain people on Facebook, but there's more people on TikTok, for example. See, a lot of people are so quick to replace different media, so it's almost like you have to have one finger in each pie of each social media world. It's just about getting out there, getting with the current, getting with the past, and just getting the message out there. And we need to embrace all sorts of things. We can't stick within our region. I'm glad you're calling it Treaty 10 news, because yes, we encompass, and we are on borrowed Treaty 10 land here, and they're having a gathering here in July, and they just came here yesterday to come and invite me to be part of that gathering and to speak a little bit and to become part of the festivities. And I gladly accepted the invitation. It's about creating those kinships. It's remembering our roots and remembering who we're neighbors with, and remembering at the end of the day who's going to be our partner through everything thick and thin. So definitely, yeah, use all sorts of medias, work with them, and it's about sharing the same message. So it's about reaching out to their communication departments as well, and understanding that they too have a message to relay and to get out there, and it's just about being that broad message. Going back to the Saskatchewan Wanderer thing, I remember Knapp Gardner and I were working on this tourism thing, and we said maybe we need to get a West Side tourism wanderer and call him like the West Side of Wanderer or something like that, and get him out there just, reporting live at the Beauval Treaty 10 gathering or the Isle Cross Festival, just from any event from Green Lake to La Loche, just get him out there on the Highway 155 and reporting live with his cell phone on social media. I said that'd be kind of a fun grant to apply for, or seasonal job to work for, because there's just so much magic going on in everybody's community, and I'm already starting to see the posters for treaty days and for festivals, and it's getting exciting. It's been a long couple of years with the pandemic, and I'm very cognizant that it's not completely over, but there's still some things we can be doing, and I'm glad that those bonds that people have lost over the last couple of years are starting to be restored, because we need each other. We need each other to heal and to move forward, for sure. Obviously, outside of the mayorship, I wear different hats and I sit on different boards, and I was blessed to visit communities all over Canada. I have unfortunately not been international, but I've met people on my travels who are just so willing to sit down with you and talk. And these people are just insanely interesting, because the more you talk to them, the more you realize, geez, you could be in Switzerland and we're going through the exact same thing way out here in small town Saskatchewan. And even when you talk about the governments and how they're treating things, it's a top-down, trickle-down approach. It takes some really creative, really innovative thinkers who get into leadership, who start thinking, maybe this system's not working that great, and start thinking about what you'd say, bottom up, or flipping flipping the thing and working from the grassroots down to government, which is what always been always the intention, right? Is to get from the grassroots to leadership, to get to those big gatherings where they decide laws and policies. Because who knows more than anybody what's going on in your community than the people in your community? They're the ones who you're trying to serve, which makes sense. So on the international approach, like I say, I've met people when I've gone to conferences in Quebec who come from everywhere from Africa to anywhere in Europe, from England, or like I said, Switzerland. Like, it's just, you get a brief chance to chat with them and you listen to them and you listen to their plights and you listen to their successes. And it's just like, geez, I wish my community or my government was like that. And I think we need to have that dialogue a little bit more, bring these people to more international business forums like we do in Saskatoon, and just get their word out there, because that's what creates and generates more innovation, more ideas. And I always take those lessons with to heart, and I try to adapt as much as I can. They're doing, I shouldn't say talking. Some of these places are already, they finally decided no more talk, and they invested in renewable energies. So we need to take pages out of that, and we all know where the gas prices are going. They're going up, and we need to start thinking more realistic about how we design, even as much as our buildings here. How it affects everything that we do. Sometimes we think those projects are too big, but they're not. If you start here, it trickles out. It has that little trickling approach. So as you do something, people pay attention. So we built this building using Daigneault, which is a very energy efficient product. Now La Crosse is doing it. Now we can see maybe another community will do it. That saves energy costs. That is more built for the north, for our conditions today, than it is with using a traditional stick built. So we're very, very aware of what's going on in the world to some certain degree, and I want to know more. I want to know what's going on. I want to take some lessons and learn more. And I'm so glad that some of these students of education, such as our own principal, Arlene Hansen, who's taken their master's in Northern Governance, were able to experience other governments of the world. I believe she flew to Geneva or somewhere in Switzerland, or somewhere really interesting. And herself has probably taken a lot of lessons out of what's going on in the education and government world out there. So more experience. Definitely, the drug problem in the community has always been with us for as long as I remember. Even when I was in high school, there was a growing drug problem brewing in the background. Fast forward now, of course, 20 plus years later. I'm not going to say how many years later, but it's obviously now in the forefront. It's in our face, and we can't ignore it. And we realize that you feel so bound sometimes as a municipal leader, because at the end of our day, we're bound within our small budgets just to keep our waters flowing to our houses and our sewers flushing to the lagoons, and just a simple thing. So when you try to step out of that world into even recreation, a lot of people don't know this. There is zero budget for recreation. All of the money that we obtain for recreation programs comes through grants, which is why we have a full-time grants writer to get that money coming in. And we're so fortunate that now the federal and provincial governments recognize that healing off the land is a priority. So we're obtaining funds for that to run cultural camps. In fact, there's one this weekend happening in Sandy Beach through some local guys taking kids out to live off the land, do some canoeing, get medicinal gathering, and what have you. So we need to keep up with those programs. We need to heal our younger generation so that they don't grow into that negative lifestyle. They need to learn who they are, become part, and it's proven already. There's been studies out there that prove that becoming one with your culture decreases the chances of leading a negative lifestyle. And so that is just one approach. Obviously now we have people in crisis. There are people who need that healing. We've been working on multiple proposals to find that you don't just heal a person, you heal their family, you heal their whole unit, right? They need to become part of the solution, and not, you don't send a person off to somewhere for 38 days or whatever it is to get to heal. They're not going to come back a healed person. They're just going to become detoxed or sober for that time being, and what's going to happen is they're going to come back to an environment that got them into that lifestyle to begin with. So we're realizing these things, and the only solution to that is to heal together as a family. So I've thrown out this word a few times now. It's called a wellness village, And we're pitching this idea to our elected officials with the provincial and federal governments. I've met with MLA Jim Lemeg, and I met with MP Gary Vidal, and I've pitched the same idea as an approach to healing people, and they really like it. Where we're kind of stuck right now is that we have a good idea. And just like any idea when it comes to business or community development, it needs to go beyond that now. It needs to go to a proposal on a paper that requires budgets and some really technical language. And that's where now we're looking to seek out and recruit who can help us put this paper together, because I think we got the ear of the governments now, wondering, tell me more about this wellness village. So now we need to take something saying, it's right here. And so if we can do that, we might get at least some interest to get something going. And what the concept of the wellness village is that you relocate a family into a positive environment. So again, like, you're not moving just a person, but you're moving a whole family so that they can, work together, live together, still go through things together. The family may not be necessarily into drugs or alcohol or anything like that, but like I said, at the end of the day, this is who's going to be your support unit. This is going to be your person you lean on. And realizing that too is that sometimes the environment itself is not working for them. So if we can relocate them to an area, and the area we've targeted is Sandy Beach, we realize that it's a resort business, but we've talked to the owners, Bruce and Judy, and they really like the idea too. And if for anybody who's been out there, there's a resort complex as well as surrounded by 8 cabins, and those cabins are completely self-sufficient on their own. They have a bathroom, they have a living room, kitchen, and living quarters. That is really the basis of any living area. So we thought if we can relocate a family into there, and that whole area was just designated as a wellness village where there's online education classes going on, so you can get your grade 10, your grade 12, or some post-secondary. You have counselors around the clock 24/7, so if you feel that you're going to relapse, you can just wake up at 3 in the morning and go speak to somebody, sit with them, have a coffee, have a water, have a tea, talk with an elder, talk with somebody. There's always going to be somebody on the clock over there, and because we know crisis doesn't happen 9 to 5. And that's the problem we have right now, is that if you're outside of those bounds, you can't go to the office and speak to somebody. You're having a crisis at 10 p.m., you're having a crisis at 3 a.m. There has to be resources around the clock ready for these people. So if we can move them into a bubble, a village within a village, and that village is a wellness village, so that they can live there, breathe there, learn there, and work there. And we'd like to create job opportunity there. Just imagine that everything you can do here in Beauval, but in a smaller area, so that if it takes them 1 year, if it takes them 5 years to get to the part where they feel like they've been in a well enough to move and transition back into the greater village, then it's a success. And if we can do that with even just one family, that's still a success. And so that's sort of where our idea is going, is that we need to heal a family, not a person. And so we're taking that concept and we're trying to, like I said, put pen to paper on and get that proposal together, because it would really require very minimal effort. We don't need to build an $18 million facility. We just need to develop a concept, and it's there, and it's almost turnkey. Yeah. Anything that can strengthen our region and create our own unique approach is gonna, at the end of the day, only make us better and stronger, right? So there have been different, I guess, I don't know what to call them, entities in the past that have been created, such as the Northwest Métis Council, as well as the Northwest Municipals Association, or some people call it Northwest Mayors Association, but obviously councillors can be involved in that. Here in this region, all the way from Green Lake to La Loche, it's just so hard unless you're from here to understand that bond we have right across that region, right? And we can easily include even like I mentioned the 155, but so as such with the 165, we have close dealings with English River, Pachinak, as well as Pine House. Everybody's so closely knit together now, and we've also bridged that gap about not seeing them as often through social media. We have a phone in our hands now. Before, you had to stay home and dial somebody's number to talk to them for an hour to catch up on what's going on with their families in Pine House or La Crosse or wherever. But now we're all together, and I think we need to. You hear this a lot, play on your strengths. We have a strength here in this region. We need to play on our own strengths. We could be doing Northwest regional development day by day. We can be living it, we can be breathing it. And as I mentioned, what we're missing is that framework agreement between the municipalities. But like I said, that requires legal councils to get those agreements together and to strategize around what that looks like and what that means, because obviously you still need to retain some certain autonomies within each municipality, but there's a lot that can go to this regional format, and that includes any jurisdictional stuff with the Métis. There is money flowing there that they could be developing these communities where Métis citizens need assistance. They need housing assistance. Why do we not have a Métis housing authority for the Northwest? Why don't we have a Métis health strategy for the Northwest? There's people who are going for cancer treatments, kidney dialysis, and it's a struggle for each person individually to apply for those funds. We need regional coordinators. We need a regional hub. And we need to break down that Northern Region 3, Northern Region 2. It's we're in this together, all the, like I said, all the way from Green Lake to Pine House to La Loche. We have the people, we have the trained people here in this region now. Before, maybe 20, 30 years ago, I said, oh, we're struggling for nurses and doctors. We have CCAs, we have LPNs, we have nurses, we have doctors. We have them, Rick. We just need to get these people together and let them know we're willing to work as a region now. And we need to break down those adages with, okay, yeah, sure, we belong to New North. Sure, we belong to, the greater MNS, but we have a region here who's crying out for supports and structure, and we can do it. We don't need to become part of a bigger pool. We can do it here. And I think if they just gave us a chance and gave us some financial resources, or like as you say, some new agreements, give us a pilot project, give us a chance to prove ourselves, because man, we're going to come out bigger and better on the other end there for sure.
How are you? Tansigida. I am